Hello and welcome to the command phase. My name is Mark and thank you so much for joining me. With Age of Sigmar 4th edition just around the corner, many players like myself are thinking about jumping into the game. So in this video we're going to take a look at all of the exciting factions available to us and hopefully help you find the perfect faction for you. Whether you are looking to join the Sentinels of Order, Agents of Chaos, Bringers of Death or Harbingers of Destruction, there will be something here for you. This will be a broad strokes overview of each faction, as there is a lot of incredible lore and detail to each one, which if you find one you're excited about, definitely dive into further. Plus, with 4th edition starting off as an index release, I'm unsure whether playstyles of armies will end up changing, so I won't go into too much detail on these in this video. But we will certainly talk about the incredible models available for each army. Just to make you aware, there will be two factions that I won't be speaking about here, the Beasts of Chaos and Bone Splitters. These will only be getting a digital index and support for the game until the summer of 2025 before going into Legends, so I wouldn't recommend choosing one of these two factions if you're looking to get started in Age of Sigmar. There will be timestamps in the description below and chapters so you can skip to the faction that you're most interested in. And let me know in the comment section below which of the armies you're thinking about starting. I'd love to know. So without any further ado, let's get stuck in. Starting off with the armies of Order, we have the Cities of Sigmar, which represent the mortal men and women, be they human, elves or Dwarden, who fled to Azir during the hateful Age of Chaos. They are now working together to build a civilization and slowly take back the land that was theirs. These regular people are the greatest defense for the strongholds of Sigmar against the endless horde of enemies that seek to cast down Sigmar's work. This army often guards the free cities built by the forces of Order around Realm Gates after the Realm Gate Wars to protect these key locations, with a wide number of other Order factions also being a part of these cities. The free guilds of the Cities of Sigmar also make up the vast majority of the Dawnbringer Crusade forces to establish new strongpoints and impose order upon the mortal realms. In terms of the tabletop, the Cities of Sigmar are a large force with a huge number of units to choose from, with plenty of ranged guns, magic and melee options available to you. This certainly feels like what you'd expect from a typical army on the battlefield. They've had a fairly sizable range refresh recently, with a large number of the human units being redesigned and have some incredible sculpts. Talia for me is the model that pushed me personally into starting this force, and while the new models are somewhat fiddly to put together, the detail on these are amazing. That being said, the other two races unfortunately haven't had a refresh, and there are still plenty of older human sculpts as well. You can mix and match however you'd like, which makes building a force very versatile, and you can really add as much character as you'd like into your army. The Daughters of KHAINE are a deadly elf cult that worships the god of battle and death, KHARADRON, or so they think. Their matriarch is Morathi, who utilises her magic to cloak her true form from her followers. She worked with the other elven gods to trap SLAANESH and extract the lost souls of the elves trapped within. For helping, she claimed the KHAINE worshipping followers for herself. During the Broken Realms, she finished a ritual to complete the apotheosis that she craved and became the deity Morathi KHAINE. The Daughters of KHAINE are a fanatical and bloodthirsty group, believing their offerings of blood and endless warfare pleases KHAINE. As they fight, they enter a frenzy, becoming more deadly and ignoring wounds. They are a fast and aggressive army, relying on overwhelming attacks and brutal efficiency. They are lightly armoured, but make up for it with ferocity. The Daughters of KHAINE are one of the fastest armies in the game and epitomise the glass cannon playstyle. Quick, weaker units with lots of attacks to cut up the enemy before they can hit back. And they only get more powerful as the game goes on through synergies. Model-wise, they are a force of some clothing-challenged female elves, which have some incredible sculpts with the newer Croneseer and of course Morathi herself, which is a piece of art. There is also a fair amount of variety here in the modelling with the snakes or winged bodies alongside the iconic Cauldron of Blood. Plenty to get your teeth into if you like the sound of this faction. The Fyreslayers are a Dwarden warrior culture who worship the fallen warrior god Grimnir, who died while killing the god beast Volcatrix during the Age of Myth. Since then, they have offered their services as mercenaries to any who would pay, not to satisfy greed or their battle lust, but for Urgold, which is a mystical treasure which only the Fyreslayers are capable of identifying from more mundane metals. They believe this contains the divine essence of Grimnir himself, and should enough be collected and harnessed in battle, Grimnir may be restored. Fyreslayers are recognisable for their almost bare-chested appearance, elaborate tattoos, and waxed and dyed mohawks. They wield magma-forged weapons and fight with a fury that is both terrifying and glorious. Urgold sigils are pounded into their flesh, not only to feel more connected to their god, but to unleash his power in battle, boosting their already great strength and skill to supernatural levels. Everyone knows the Sons of Grimnir take honour very seriously, and their oath is unbreakable once given. The Fyreslayers are a visually iconic looking army, being fairly elite and a heavy focus on melee combat. But don't be fooled by their lack of attire, they are a fairly resilient army with some cool once per game abilities in their runes to utilise at key moments. While they don't have the biggest range of units to choose from, they do have some great looking characters and the incredible magma drafts at their disposal. Plus a fairly straightforward painting project here, which you'll certainly have the ability to push a lot further should you wish to. The IDONETH Deepkin were created by Teclis to act as successors to the elven races of the world that was. Unfortunately, they bore a spiritual trauma from the time within the belly of SLAANESH and shunned Teclis' teachings, causing him to try and kill them. They fled beneath the oceans, and once there, they made a horrific discovery that their young were born with weak and feeble souls. They found out that the only way to preserve them was to steal the souls of other living beings to avoid extinction. On the tabletop, they have a good mix of infantry and faster moving larger models, plus a lot of really cool looking cavalry units. They synergize really well with one another alongside some great magical abilities, and with the Eidolon and Leviathan being the main centerpieces to an incredible looking force. If you enjoy painting sea creatures like everyone's favourite crab and octopus, then this may well be the army for you. The KHARADRON Overlords were the descendants of the Khazalid Empire and were driven to the skies during the Age of Chaos, foregoing their old ways to do so. In time, they created a technologically advanced empire in the clouds by leveraging the substance known as Aether Gold. With this, they created incredible sky vessels, amazing scientific discoveries, and some utterly deadly weaponry. The culture of the KHARADRON Overlords is mercantile, meritocratic, and pragmatic. They prize three things above all else: relentless innovation, boundless ambition, and the application of overwhelming firepower. To these mercantile Dwarden, the pursuit of profit is everything. It's very easy to recognise a KHARADRON Overlord's force on the tabletop with the heavy steampunk aesthetic and the flying ships. They are a very aggressive shooting focused army with some light melee elements and a unique playing experience compared to other factions, albeit very rewarding when you get it right. While they don't have the biggest range of units to choose from, the aesthetic is incredible, and seeing as you have a leader with guns in his beard, what's not to like? The LUMINETH Realm Lords were crafted by the twin gods Teclis and Tyrion from the souls recovered from SLAANESH. The LUMINETH were often mistaken for angelic beings of pure light, for they glow with the glorious power of Hysh. Their incredible intellects were once devoted to the arts, magic and philosophy, striving for perfection. This led to the Spirefall, a civil war where the magical energies used ended up unleashing demons of SLAANESH from rifts to the realm of chaos. By overcoming their arrogant tendencies and putting the geomagnetic spirits of Hysh at the centre of their existence, they are now the masters of the art of war and a mighty elven race who consider it their duty to save the realms from chaos, fighting alongside towering avatars who are the war forms of the realm of light itself. On the tabletop, the LUMINETH Realm Lords are what you'd probably expect from a high elf style army that is very powerful and have a plethora of options to suit your gameplay preference. This coincides with a beautiful set of models, with the Visari being the typical bow, spear and sword wielding units, plus 2 distinct elite style units based on the elements of wind and earth, both of which have some incredible looking sculpts for your hobbying needs. The SERAPHON are a race of intelligent reptilian humanoids who are the lost children of the Old Ones, mysterious beings of godlike powers. The Old Ones had a great plan for all creation, a cosmic design of staggering scale. It is the duty of the SERAPHON to enact this great plan, and in doing so, bringing about the defeat of Chaos, their most ancient foe. Their armies are made up of a few key species. You have the Great Slann, who have mastered the secrets of pure magic and able to use the power of Azir to create SERAPHON from their memories. The diminutive skinks are the skirmishers and priests of the SERAPHON. Then there's the Saurus, which are the brutal reptilians and the mainstay of a SERAPHON force, each with impressive combat powers. And last of all are the Kroxigors, which are huge monsters twice the size of Saurus, able to deal immense damage with their mauls and hammers. Whether they come from beyond the stars or the depths of steaming jungles, behind their animalistic savagery lies the power to alter the destiny of the realms. On the tabletop, this army is iconic, and one of the few that players of the old world would recognise. There are a few playstyles available, whether you're going heavy on magic and a plethora of skinks, to a big combat force with Saurus, Kroxigors and fast moving, infinitely cooler looking cavalry. The range of models is incredible, and to be fair, if you're after a lizard riding a dinosaur, this is 100% the army for you. There's also a lot of fairly new sculpts as well, which makes this army a lot of fun to not only build, but paint as well. The Stormcast Eternals were once mortal heroes whose souls were plucked from countless battlefields in their moment of death, and transported to Azir to be reforged anew upon the anvil of apotheosis. This reforging process transformed them into supernatural warriors clad in Sigmarite armour, and they became the God King's weapons to fight back the forces of chaos. These warriors were then thrust back into the fight, arriving on bolts of divine lightning to take on the gravest of foes. And when they die, their souls return to Azir to be reforged once more and thrown back into the fight again. They cannot escape this righteous purpose. Although the price for their immortality is each time they are reforged, they lose a part of their humanity, until they are nothing more than a warrior from the heavens. In-game they are a resilient force that is a jack of all trades army. They can do everything pretty well, and of course you can specialise in ranged combat or magic should you wish to. They have some incredible new sculpts coming with the reopening of the Ruination Chamber for 4th edition, plus a whole host of beasts and even dragon riders which look fantastic. With the Stormcast being the main faction in each starter set, they are typically a good army to collect, as you'll always end up getting your battle tome first. They'll typically get new miniatures with each edition's release, plus they are a fairly easy painting project to get started with as well. That, and there are plenty of cheap models on the second-hand market to be able to pick up. Although one thing to note here on that is that there is a number of models not being supported in the new edition, mainly from the Sacrosanct Chamber, which are on the screen now for you. So if you do decide to take a look on the secondary market, I try to avoid picking up any of these. Last of the factions of Order, we have the SYLVANETH, who are fey creatures from the wilds of the mortal realms, particularly in Garan, the realm of life. These creatures are not flesh and blood, but bark and sap, living in perfect harmony with the forest and glades they call home. From dryads to tree lords, the SYLVANETH are each bringers of life, or to those who invade their homes, death. To face the SYLVANETH is to stand before the fury of a summer storm. They are the wrath of the deep woods and the sacred places they protect, led by their mother goddess, Alarielle, who leads them with her spirit song. Hardened by years of loss during the Age of Chaos, the SYLVANETH have been forced to become a warrior race who are committed to eradicating all who would interfere with the natural order, and have become fervent believers in the cause of order. On the tabletop, this is a striking army of treefolk and dryads who utilise terrain in a way no other army does. They feel like a hit and run style force with a mix of powerful casters, buffs and movement. In terms of the models, you have a lot of really cool nature themed units, with the dryads, spirit revenants and tree lords being really great sculpts, but with centerpiece models like Belthanos and Alarielle available to you, you certainly won't be struggling with fun painting projects. Moving on to the forces of chaos now, and we start with the Blades of Khorne, who are devoted warriors of the most bloodthirsty of the chaos gods. The armies that fight for Khorne have sold their souls to him and in turn been recognised for their prowess on the battlefield. They plunge headfirst into the most savage and hate-fueled fighting imaginable, earning their lord's favour with each skull they claim. With their raw skill, the mortal and demonic followers of the Blood God leave regions as gore-slick wastelands, dotted with piles of headless corpses. They are an uncomplicated army, but while their savagery is fairly simplistic, it's seen them triumph time and time again. On the tabletop, you may have guessed this is a heavy combat-focused army, utilising prayers to buff their killing potential. You have a variety of units to choose from, whether it's the demons or human units, with a large amount of flesh tones, armour and trim. While the trim can get a little off-putting for some, granted it's a lot less than their 40k counterparts, it's a great hobby project, and with access to a go to demons, it's a really cool army to field on the tabletop. Especially if you want a fairly simplistic run forward and smash your enemy in the face really hard playstyle. The Disciples of TZEENTCH, on the other hand, are completely different. They lurk in the shadows, manipulating the strand of fate to serve their whim. They are the bringers of madness and pandemonium, and when they rise up in force, their foes are soon overcome by their masterful ploys and storms of blazing spellcraft. TZEENTCH is the architect of fate, the god of change, ambition and magic. His devoted armies are filled with demons and mortals who are just as warped as the Lord of Flux himself. When he demands it, these cackling shapeless demons spill into reality, conjuring pyroclastic displays of magic to ensure that destiny follows the route ordained by TZEENTCH. This, as you may have guessed, is a very magic heavy army with some incredible casters, the Lord of Change being top of that list and an incredible model. This is backed up by a whole manner of Zangors, humans and demons to overwhelm your enemy. This army has some really fun sculpts to get your teeth into, and as a hobby project it's got a good variety of units to build, paint and play. Born from the excess of mortals, the Hedonites of SLAANESH come to bring ecstatic carnage to the realms. Though they may appear graceful, it's a sinister mirage as they are monstrously cruel, and their wars are waged as much to spread suffering as to achieve any strategic goal. The Hedonites are the favoured servants of the Dark Prince, connoisseurs of excess and ringmasters to carnivals of sin. To them, the battlefield is a celebration of extreme sensation, fear, anger, pain, and more besides, all for them to indulge in. Wielding cruelly barbed weapons and wickedly sharp claws, they eviscerate the enemy, extending every death so they may revel in the agony and terror they cause. On the tabletop, they are a fast army with good combat and decent shooting, looking to debuff the enemy and get stronger as the game goes on. While this may be subject to change once the index drops, the model range you have access to for this force is incredible, which seems to be a very common theme in this video. They have a lot of great foot troops, and with the likes of Painbringers, Cavalry of the Seekers, up to the incredible Keeper of Secrets and Sigvald, Prince of SLAANESH. The Maggotkin of NURGLE are entropy and sickness in given form. Charged by their disgusting deity, NURGLE, the god of plagues, with spreading disease across the mortal realms, shrugging off the mightiest blows and most potent spells with wet, gurgling laughs. Though NURGLE is a source of fear and revulsion to his enemies, he is generous with his foul gifts. His armies, both mortal and demon, bulge with virulent boons. These Maggotkin spread the joyous filth and bountiful contagions, hoping to turn the world of the mortal realms into a single garden of beautiful putrescence. On the tabletop, they are a resilient force that have access to some great demon units alongside the hard-hitting mortal ones, plus with some interesting tricks up their sleeve too. Hobby-wise, there are a wide range of units and great sculpts which are full of character, with one of my favourites being the Sloppity Bilepiper. I mean, I just love saying the name as well. Although with the Harbinger of Decay and of course the Great Unclean One, you have some excellent centrepiece models for the army, and they're also pretty forgiving to paint too. Hidden in the darkness, the SKAVEN clans scheme and multiply. These maniacal ratmen eagerly prepare for the day their numberless hordes swarm from the shadows and overrun the surface world. There is no one they would not betray, least of all each other, to achieve that goal. A knife in the back being far more preferable to facing conflict head on. Their wicked nature is reflected in their god, the Great Horned Rat, who has become the newest member of the Ruinous Powers. The SKAVEN have utilised Warpstone to create hideous monstrosities, from their rat ogres to the titanic monstrosity of the Hell Pit abominations. Not only that, but it's the key material for their powerful yet temperamental weaponry in the form of warp lightning cannons and doom wheels, and often my favourite memory playing this faction is doing more damage to yourself than the opponent. On the tabletop, the SKAVEN are the greatest army ever to implode. All jokes aside, they have access to really solid units in pretty much all facets of the game. Whilst they are high in numbers, they are very fragile. With the upcoming 4th edition, SKAVEN are getting a whole manner of updated sculpts, alongside being one of the first battle tomes to be released this edition. The new sculpts in the SKAVEN Tide launch box look incredible, and honestly this glow up was much needed. So if you're thinking about getting into SKAVEN, this is the perfect time to do so. While most Chaos armies are focused on a single god, the Slaves to Darkness are Chaos undivided. These corrupted tribes and clans have long been devoted to the Ruinous Powers and hungry to tear the Sigmarite nations to shreds. They are the Hordes of Chaos, the Lost and the Damned. They were abandoned by the God King during the Age of Chaos and then ruled upon by fell champions, with Archaon the Ever-Chosen being the mightiest of them all. Where the worshippers of the Dark Gods march, the mortal realms tremble. Under the gaze of their dread pantheon, the slaves to darkness carve their way through all that stand before them in the pursuit of glory, seeking new challenges and conquests along the way. On the tabletop, this army is very melee and character centric, and my word do they have some incredible characters to choose from. The new inclusion from the Dawnbringer series in Abraxia looks incredible to paint up, but with the likes of Be'lakor and of course Archaon the Everchosen, you certainly won't be lacking any centerpiece models for your force. To back these up, there is a wide variety of troops, from your typical armoured warriors, knights and more specialist units to the incredible new Dark Oath range that's recently been added to the faction. These merciless reavers look fantastic and give your army even more choice going forward. The Flesh Eater Courts honestly have some of my favourite lore in Age of Sigmar. Their origins lie in tragedy, although their deeds may well make it look a little bit difficult to look upon them with any pity. They originated from the lands that were cast into ruin during the Age of Chaos. They did anything they could to survive, and it's a little wonder that they'd end up turning to cannibalism. Although it wasn't until they drank the blood of the vampire Usharan, the Mortarch of Delusion, that they became the Flesh Eaters and shared in their liege's madness. Ruled over by monstrous vampiric creatures known as abhorrents, they live under the delusion that their kingdom stand proud against evil, eating feasts and listening to tales of gallant knights fighting to uphold noble virtues, even as they devour their screaming and often still living prey in bloody and horrifying feasts. On the tabletop, this army is very much geared around your characters, completing noble deeds that help to buff the rest of the massed infantry of the army, either in damage or returning models back to the battlefield, which is very much on theme. They've recently had a model rework with a lot of great new kits added to the range which look fantastic. Not only the Crypt Guard and Bat Cavalry of the Morbeg Knights, but also there being so much character in their leader units, including a very spiffing wig made of intestines, plus the incredible Usharan model, which I'm trying to stop myself buying at the moment. There are loads of great options here to get into, and I'm sure you'll have an amazing time on your merry crusades with this faction. The Nighthaunt are an army of cursed spirits unleashed upon the realms, ravaging the lands as they surge forth like an ill gale from their crumbling mausoleums and sepulchres. They are sustained by fathomless hatred for the living, and these grim hosts of geists and spectres are the stuff of the darkest folk tales. Nearly all Nighthaunt were wicked mortals in a past life, and upon death their souls were ensnared in the chains of Nagash's warped sense of justice and bound to serve him forevermore. Remade through necromantic sorcery and twisted by his depthless spite, these are no mere ghosts. Their ethereal bodies glow with a baleful light, and their wailing can cause even a veteran warrior's heart to freeze with terror. On the tabletop, this army has a lot of bodies, and with them being ghosts, they all ignore rend, which is a pretty strong ability. They have a lot of characters to help guide their units and are pretty solid in every phase of the game. There are a lot of different kits to choose from, and you can get these onto the tabletop fairly easily with a quick paint job, or really go to town on them and make them a beautiful army should you wish to. They have a lot of great models, including the Black Coach, which doesn't really fit on its base properly but looks incredible, so we can definitely let it off. Plus, with them being a starter faction in the 2nd edition, you may well still be able to find some bargains on the secondary market. The OSSIARCH Bonereapers are Nagash's personal army of constructs. Each one is a handcrafted golem of intertwined souls and bones reshaped for war by the Mortisan cult, who choose their materials with the care of an artisan. They splice together souls to keep the traits they want, like loyalty, obedience, and ferocity, while discarding useless notions of mercy and compassion. This creates an indifferent and disciplined warrior suited for the ordered warfare of the OSSIARCH Empire. They are led by Katakros, Mortarch of the Necropolis. He is perhaps the finest military mind of the mortal realms and succeeded where Sigmar failed, by invading Archaon's lands and raising a monumental fortress around the Archway portal to Shyish. Now his thoughts are proving the supremacy of the Bone Reaper legions beyond any doubt. They are a deeply tactical army on the tabletop, feeling very much like a Roman Empire, with a lot of disciplined infantry backed up by powerful characters and hard-hitting constructs. It's a visually striking army and some incredible sculpts all the way through. I'm a huge fan of this army and Katakros is a great looking miniature, but for me I think the Morghast units just look fantastic. Obviously there's lots of bone too, which could well make it a quick army to get onto the tabletop with a fairly simple paint job. In the world that was, Neferata stole the infernal grimoires from Nagash in her jealousy of his immortality, in order to replicate the elixir he had created. Although she was in fact successful, she had become one of the first vampires in the process. She and the other vampiric nobles of the Soulblight Gravelords served Nagash as some of his foremost generals, a few among them even ruling vast swathes of Shyish as his Mortarchs. They lead vast hordes of skeletal warriors and freshly raised walking corpses into battle, alongside a plethora of direwolves and fell bats to overwhelm their opponents. Necromancers and death mages ensure these undead armies remain full of vigour and resurrect those who fall. These immortal aristocrats constantly push to expand their holdings, for they will never be satisfied until the mortal realms are shrouded in night and drowned in blood. On the tabletop you have a lot of options here and a huge model range to choose from. Whether you're looking to overwhelm your opponent with sheer weight of numbers, backed up by powerful characters and magic with the ability to resurrect your units, or you could go more elite focused with the Blood Knights for a very strong force, it's really down to you. Either way you'll have a wide variety of great miniatures to choose from, and some fairly newer sculpts too thanks to the Cursed City game. Moving into destruction now, and we have the Gloomspite GITZ. They are cunning and vindictive in the extreme. Their deranged grotty minds are forever spinning up fresh tricks and vicious ploys. United in their worship of the Bad Moon, these boggle-eyed grots and their odious cave beast allies may not be the most disciplined fighting force in the realms, but that hasn't stopped them undermining civilization with terrifying fervour. Their hordes pour out of the dank and clammy places of the realms. Under the malign light of the Bad Moon, they are filled with frothing mania, with their ultimate mission bringing about the Everdank. Should they ever succeed, the other races of the realms will soon find themselves at the grot's demented mercy. The Gloomspite GITZ are a vast horde of an army and can call upon a variety of units to deal with any threat your opponent presents. This army has a huge amount of character, and for someone that enjoyed the goblin aesthetic and the incredible squigs, then this is perfect for you. There are loads of characterful sculpts, iconic fanatics, and incredible centerpieces like the Mangler Squigs and the Arachnarok Spider Riders, all backed up by some less than intelligent Troggoths to do your heavy lifting. While you will need a lot of models for this army, it'll be an incredibly fun project to do. The Ogre MAWTRIBES are nomadic empires of brutish juggernauts that range across the lands, raiding and pillaging to appease their insatiable hunger. These chunky brutes are monstrously strong, and what they lack in subtlety, they more than make up for in belligerent brawn. They are a living testament of destruction's creed, of might making right. Food is central to an ogre's existence, which is in two states: stuffing one's face or hunting for meat. The butchers and slaughtermasters guide their tribes on their moorpath to their next meal, and those that caught in the path of these MAWTRIBES are liable to find themselves caught up and eaten alive, as they are bullish and bestial by nature. On the tabletop, this is an army that wants to smash into things and chop them up, although they do have access to good ranged options and more magic too, which grants powerful damage dealing buffs and healing those ogres if needed, which can really blunt your opponent's momentum. Plus, being able to feast on flesh at the end of a turn and heal your units that have been in combat is a nice thematic touch, which is also pretty powerful. Miniatures wise, you have a fair few to choose from and a lot of very flavourful units, although the Thundertusk and Stonehall Riders for me are amazing looking miniatures. This definitely feels like a very new player friendly faction to pick up. When the ORRUK WARCLANS are on the rampage, reality quakes. These greenskin brutes are obsessed with fighting and firmly believe they are the hardest creatures in the mortal realms. Every moment that passes without their choppers carving through flesh is a moment wasted. They are the children of the twin-headed Gorkamorka, who they fought alongside during the Age of Myth. When Gorkamorka split, the ORRUKs came to respect the different aspects and see Gork and possibly Mork's favour. Regardless of which, the ORRUKs find themselves overcome with the same primal energy in war, known as War. It acts as a savage dynamo whose call cannot be ignored, driving ORRUKs forward at the vanguard of Destruction's unstoppable advance. In 4th edition, there are two main sub-factions of these ORRUKs. First up is the sneakier Cruel Boys, who are cunning but brutal swamp dwellers who prize deviousness over strength. And on the other side of the spectrum, you have the Iron Jaws, who are the biggest and baddest ORRUKs in the mortal realms, always seeking bigger opponents to crump down to size. These options give you a wide variety of models to choose from that also allows you to find what fits your playstyle, whether it's more calculated mix of range and melee or just charging headlong straight at the enemy. There will be something here for you. Plus some amazing centerpieces and of course a big pig. What's not to love here? Last of all, we come to the Sons of Behemat. When they are on the move, all would do well to flee in terror. These gargantuan louts lay waste to settlements and squash entire armies for the boneheaded joy of it. Each is worth many times their own number of lesser warriors, and with every year they get larger, more boisterous, and more violent. Bellowing, stomping and crushing all before them, the Sons of Behemat are all but impossible to stop. Though they owe allegiance to no man, many are mercenaries and fight all across the mortal realms. On the charge, a group of Gargantua can flatten a battle line whilst only suffering flesh wounds and the odd broken toe in return. For 40k players, this will feel very much like Imperial Knights, a very low model count force depending on how many of the mega gargants you take over the smaller ones, but with that you're getting an incredibly tough army that moves forward and destroys everything in its path. It's a great army to play, as having the limited number of war scrolls and being pretty resilient means that you can really focus on playing the game rather than lots of complicated rules. One thing to note is these are all pretty large centerpiece models, so it'll certainly be a challenge to get them painted up to a decent standard. Hopefully this has helped you to understand all of the different races available to you for your first Age of Sigmar army, and I'd be very surprised if there's only one that you liked. From here you can dive in further with learning more about the lore of each, take a look at the rules once they're available for free when the edition launches, and maybe even grab a box of models to jump straight in. The Spearhead format was great fun, and all of the current Spearhead and Vanguard boxes will be supported, so it's a perfect way to test drive an army. Let me know in the comment section below which army you're most interested in. I'd love to know. Plus, if you'd like to see more Age of Sigmar content on the channel, please let me know as well. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more, hit the like and subscribe button, as it really helps the channel to grow. Thank you so much for watching the command phase, and I'll see you in the next video.